Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Just a quick overview of the agenda for tonight. So we're just going to do a quick welcome, then we'll review some online tools and resources with our senior trail planner. And once we go over those resources, we'll get into the meat of our program tonight. So we'll have our circumnavigator panel. We've got 4 wonderful panelists who are here with us this evening. We'll hear a little bit about their circumnavigation stories. And once we hear those, we'll go into some breakout rooms for Q&A sessions with the panelists. So when we get to those breakout rooms, you'll be able to choose which panelist you'd like to ask some more questions. And again, note that this webinar will be recorded and we'll make it available later on our website and our YouTube channel. And again, we'll send out this presentation to everyone who attended today. We are so excited to be here. We hope you have fun and we appreciate your patience. This event is super large this evening, so definitely when we get to that Q&A session, we'll try to get to as many questions as possible. But we hope that you come away with having learned something and having just a blast this evening. Just to introduce some of our Ridge Trail staff who are on the call today. My name is Hannah Barty. I am the Trail Experience and Engagement Manager, and I'll be your host this evening. We also have our Executive Director, Janet Mcbride, Marie Sales, our Development Director, Simone Nagion de Latang, who's our Senior Trail Planner, and behind the scenes, helping things to go smoothly, Alex Sabo, our Advocacy and Outreach Manager, and Ryan Mack, our Deputy Director. And before we dive in, just a quick acknowledgement. Our meeting is held on native land. The Bay Area Ridge Trail Council offices are located on the present ancestral homelands and of the Ramaytush Ohlone. These original stewards tended and loved the land long before anyone else, and we want to acknowledge the vital role that their descendants play in the San Francisco Peninsula today. We further acknowledge that the Ridge Trail itself is on the ancestral lands of many other Indigenous peoples and nations in the Bay Area. And digital space is still native space. The server, the ground holding the cable tower, the air that holds the Wi-Fi signal, we are on Indigenous land even while on Zoom. So we invite you to learn more about the native lands where you live, work, and recreate by visiting nativeland.ca. And if you'd like to and know more about it, you can call on the chat the native land where you're joining us from this evening. And I'd love to introduce to you our Executive Director, Janet Mcbride.
Great, thank you so much. Well, welcome everyone. Most of you probably already know quite a lot about the Ridge Trail and the Council, but for anyone who's new to the party, our mission is to plan, build, and promote a connected multi-use trail on the ridgelines surrounding San Francisco Bay to enjoy today and also as a legacy for future generations. So ultimately, the full route will extend about 550 miles from Calistoga in the north to Gilroy in the south. And last month, we reached a really major milestone of getting to 400 miles of dedicated trail. So we have a really clear, if audacious, mission, but our vision is also much bigger than just the trail itself. And the idea of circumnavigating, the idea that anyone in the Bay Area could start from where you live, get to a trailhead nearby, and then sure, enjoy a short hike or ride, or you could also keep going and take an epic adventure on a continuous ridgeline trail loop with overnight stays and camps, huts, yurts, or maybe even swanky inns along the way. So this idea of circumnavigation, it's always been part of the big vision. But in the early days, it wasn't really possible to traverse long stretches. But now, because it was just the trail itself was just not connected enough, it was discontinuous. But now that we have 400 miles open and longer stretches are connected, more and more people are taking on this challenge of traversing all the completed sections. So, and the Ridge Trail is all in on this idea. We've been working steadily to support and promote circumnavigation and all the different ways that people might want to take on this challenge, be it with section hikes or rides on a daily basis, or with multi-day trips and a network, like I said, this network of campsites, yurts, or inns. So tonight we are really excited to share resources, from maps and apps to curated trip suggestions to insider stories and tips. We're excited to share, and we're also excited to learn more about your needs and priorities. And just lastly, in these crazy pandemic times, it's nice to know that you don't need to get on a plane. You don't need to fly to Spain to enjoy the Camino de Santiago or fly to New Zealand to hike the Milford Trek. This is a great time to take an epic trail challenge right here in your own backyard. So with that, I'd like to pass it over to Marie.
All right, so we are a member organization, and you are mostly probably all members, but many of you may be new to the Ridge Trail. We are a small but mighty team of 7 individuals, and we have a vision for a very large task to complete all 550 miles, and we cannot do it without members to support us. Over 50% of our income on an annual basis comes from members like you making an annual pledge or a gift. And today we have an extra special incentive. If you would like to make a gift today, become a member, or make an additional gift, you have a chance to win a brand new 400-mile Ridge Trail poster. This poster has been recently designed by Ben Pease, one of our extraordinary map makers. And all you have to do is go to ridgetrail.org/win-a-map, which somebody will drop into the link, and we'll make sure you get after the webinar. And we will pull a raffle winner from the list. And this is somebody has to help me out, 18 by 24 inch beautiful hard stock map. So we'll mail it to your home. And thank you to all of you who have really contributed over the years and supported the Ridge Trail through your generous donations. Really, without you, we could not do the work that we do. So come join us and help build the next 150 miles. I'm going to pass it on to Simone.
Oh, great. All right. Well, hello, everyone. And so thank you so much. And so as Marie mentioned, we are really excited to share these tools with you. So in addition to this great map that you can get, a printout map, we have a lot of other maps that you can also check out. But yeah, my name is Simone. I'm a trail planner here. My job is to help close the gaps on the trail, but the other part of my job is to help you guys to enjoy and to be able to have the tools that you need to be able to circumnavigate. I like this, more miles equals more smiles. That's our job. So that's what we try to do. So I guess if we can go to the next slide, I am going to give you guys an overview tonight of what our tools are in our Circumnavigation Resource Center. There's a lot of them. So if I am overwhelming you at all, please know that you can always go afterwards. We're going to be emailing out these resources, but you can always find these on our website. And that's if you go to Trail Maps and Tools up at the top, and then scroll down to Circumnavigation. We have a whole page with lots of click-through links for you to explore. So you can always find those there. So if we go to the next slide, I would like to highlight, a couple of different categories of tools that we have. And the very first primary one, of course, is getting the maps that you need to be able to circumnavigate. There's a couple ways that you can do it. So the first, if you're interested, if you're a hard copy person, you can purchase our guidebook. So it's the official Bay Area Ridge Trail guidebook. It's published by Wilderness Press. There's links for it to be able to purchase on our website, but it is also a membership premium. So if you become a member later, you have the option to, donate a little bit more to get a guidebook. But this is a great way to explore. I love hiking with mine, and it's a great one to kind of have in your hands as you're out on the trail. But if you don't want to use the book and you want to get all of our maps for free, they are available for download on our website. So there is a whole list with every single section. It's a downloadable PDF, and it includes what types of activities you can do on the trail, a little description, and kind of where the starting and stopping points are for, because they might not be as obvious as we are working to link up the whole trail. And then we also have an interactive map on our website, and I want to highlight that here. And so if you go to the next slide, Marie, so this interactive website or this interactive map is called our Ridge Trail Explorer map. And it allows you to kind of click around and click on each section of the trail and find out a little bit more about it. So there is, on the left-hand side of the screen, there is this layers that you can see here, and you can toggle all of these on and off. So you can see the different campsites that are on the trail for bikes, horses, dogs, and whether or not trails are paved or maybe easy access. Then those kind of get highlighted in green, yellow, or red. So you can see what uses may be allowed on a certain section. If you're trying to circumnavigate by bike, for example, there are some sections where bikes aren't allowed, but we usually have a parallel route that you can take instead. So explore that and check those out. I also want to note that we do have, it's not completely comprehensive, but definitely a list of most of the campsites that are very nearby the trail. And if you click on any of these little icons, it comes up with a pop-up that takes you to a reservation page, if we could link it, or just gives you a little bit more info about the campsite. And also we have, for any of these sections, you can click on the section and it brings you to a pop-up that has some more mileage or information on the mileage, the distance, and a link to the page on our website. So that's a pretty good one. And then, that's okay. You can, you can go to the next slide, Marie. And then, so if you are more of a person who's looking to get the trail on your mobile phone, we do work with 2 different apps to make sure that our route is correct. And those apps are All Trails and Outer Spatial. I want to note that you can use any other app that you want, but these are the 2 right now that we work with to make sure that our route is correct. And we have easy avenues to kind of update it if something goes wrong. So, so these are our 2 ones that we're working with. So that's, once again, All Trails and Outer Spatial. And then if you go to the next slide, we also have some tools for tracking your circumnavigation. And so this comes into play. There are, I think it's over 70 different sections of the Ridge Trail. So to make sure that you get it right and you can check off everything, we have a pretty simple trail tracker. It is a spreadsheet that has the name of the section, the amount of miles, and then also lets you to just check it off and add any notes. So that's available for download on our website. We encourage all of you to use it. But once again, we have a little tool that I want to highlight. If you want to get a little bit more complicated, this is something that we've made specifically for circumnavigators, and that is the Planning Navigator. And so Marie, if you can go to the next slide. So the Planning Navigator is also a spreadsheet, and it's filterable. So you can kind of filter it by any of these columns in here. And it is a little bit, I see somebody loves it in the chat. Thank you, Nicole. I'm glad to see this. We're, always looking for feedback. So on any of these tools, if you guys have ideas of things that you would like to see, please reach out. We want to make it as easy as possible for you to circumnavigate and get the information you need. But this is the 2.0 version that we published. Actually, I think it was late in December with our 400 miles coming out. So this one, we added a little bit to it. So not only does it have the name of the section, but also for each of them, if you go across the line, you can see links to the map page, links to the mobile app page, depending on which one of the apps you want to use. And then we also have, the different types of miles, elevation, and the difficulty rating for them. This is one that I think is really important. That's a new feature, are the locations and Google Map directions to trailhead parking. As many of you may know, if you type in Redwood Regional Park, there are 7 different parking areas that you could go to, but there are probably only 1 or 2 that you really want to use when you're circumnavigating to get to the right spot on the Ridge Trail. And that is what we've linked here. So I recommend checking those out. And those are links to the Google Map directions. And then also we have some notes on whether or not a shuttle is possible for a section. For those of you, I've done a lot of running out and back on some sections, but for those of you that have good friends that you're going with and you're running shuttles to complete it, there are some sections where you can't run a shuttle. And if you can, we have, unfortunately, it's cut off in my little screenshot here, but there are notes if there's any good tips that we have. And so this we look forward to adding to. If people have good ideas or comments, please let us know. But this is a good tool that we hope that you guys check out and use, and yeah, let us know how we can improve it. We have just a couple more tools. So next up, if anyone is interested on taking a multi-day trip on the Ridge Trail, it's definitely possible. There are a lot of campgrounds that are around the Ridge Trail. There's some sections that are easier to do it than others. And I saw someone asking a question, how do we advocate for more campgrounds? Don't worry, that's something that we do. Become a member, stay involved with us. We're always looking to get more campsites in the Bay Area. But for now, we have a couple different itineraries on our website that you guys can enjoy already. So we have, I think, 3 to 4 itineraries. So all around the Bay Area, if you want to be backpacking, if you want to try bike packing, another fun way to do it. And then we also have itineraries for 3-day base camps. You guys may notice that there's less Ridge Trail in the North Bay and the South Bay. Those sections have been a little bit harder for us to complete. So we have some itinerary ideas where you can stay at perhaps a motel, a little inn, and use it as a base camp to do day trips to just knock out some more miles on. So those are also itineraries you can find all on the website in that Circumnavigation Resource Center. And then if we go to the next slide, so finally, we have the Circumnavigator Circle, which is what you guys signed up for in the little form when we were to win that All Trails Pro membership. So make sure you sign up for that. And this one, we're going to keep you guys up to date with any resources. We're actually going to have events this year, which is really exciting. We want you to come. They're great ways for you to knock out your miles, meet other people. So that will all be advertised on this Circumnavigator Circle. And then we also have a Facebook group, the Trail Trekkers. So you can find and connect with other people who are also circumnavigating. And this is, it's a fun group. A lot of people share their adventures. And I'm seeing someone say that an alternative to Facebook, we don't have that at this time, but yeah, we are, always looking to see how other ways that you guys would want to connect. So with that, that's a pretty big overview of our tools. And I think with that, I am ready to pass it along to Hannah to talk to our panelists.
Thanks so much for the great overview, Simone. And I definitely saw a couple of questions. We've got some more questions in the chat. There's some great ones around the planning navigator and also around some shuttling and parking. Simone will also be in a breakout room along with Lyndall this evening. So if you have questions about shuttling, which might include that parking piece, you can definitely hop into that room to ask those questions if we didn't get to you in the chat. So I'm so excited to introduce our Circumnavigator panel this evening. We have folks who have run, biked, hiked, or ridden on horseback around the Bay Area on the Ridge Trail. And we are looking forward to introducing each of them. So I'll go through the introductions and then we'll have some questions that they'll answer in a round robin style. This evening, we have joining us Anil Rao, who is an ultra runner who's been running for the past 20 years. He's a race director and a new Ridge Trail board member. He currently lives in Santa Clara, California. In addition to recently joining the Ridge Trail board, he has volunteered for trail maintenance days and is currently working on organizing a small fundraiser event for Ridge Trail projects. Anil started circumnavigating in July 2020, finishing in April 2021, mainly by running different sections on the weekends. Also joining us today is Austin McInerney, drawing on his varied experiences, including an 11-year stint on the board of the Bay Area Ridge Trail, serving as the president of the National Interscholastic Cycling Association for 7 years, and coaching the Berkeley High School mountain bike team. Austin believes immensely in the power of cycling to transform the lives of individuals and the culture of entire communities. To familiarize himself with the needs of the Ridge Trail, he rode as much of the trail as possible for cyclists, starting and ending in San Francisco in 2011. Luana Espana is also joining us this evening. Luana is a runner, hiker, and backpacker from San Leandro, California. She has been active on the Bay Area Ridge Trail as a board member for 6 years and is currently serving on 3 board task force: the Strategic Planning Task Force, the Circumnavigation Task Force, and the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force. Luana ran, hiked, and biked all completed sections of the Ridge Trail in 2016. And last but certainly not least, we have Lyndall Erb, PhD, who's joining us. Lyndall is a lifelong equestrian who has deep Bay Area ties, as she was born and raised in San Francisco and later lived in San Mateo County for 25 years before moving to the foothills near Yosemite. Lyndall has been a volunteer for many Ridge Trail events, and as president of Bay Area Barns and Trails, she has supported the Ridge Trail in many ways. The founder of Bay Area Barns and Trails was also a force behind the Ridge Trail, and the two have been closely linked for years. Given the current difficult logistics of circumnavigation for equestrians, including availability of campsites and trailer parking, Lyndall has never attempted a full circumnavigation of the Ridge Trail, but she has ridden many sections throughout the region. She still occasionally rides on the Ridge Trail with friends who live in the Bay Area. Hello, everyone. Thanks so much again for being here this evening. It's good to see your faces, and I'm excited to hear your voices to share some of your stories about being out on the Ridge Trail. I've been so inspired just reading a little bit about your stories, and I'm thrilled that you'll be sharing some of that with our guests here today. For folks who are in the breakout or in this meeting with us this evening, we welcome comments in the chat and the use of reaction buttons, but definitely save your questions for the Q&A session when we'll be able to join breakout rooms with the panelists. So starting with Anil, can you tell me a bit about how you circumnavigated and your favorite part of the trail?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for organizing this, and I'm thankful to all the staff and people behind Ridge Trail that was a fascinating experience in 2020 and 2021. I mainly ran different sections over a period of 9 months, and picking a favorite section in 400 miles is extremely hard. So I ended up picking 4 from 4 different regions. In the North Marine, my favorite section was Samuel P. Taylor Park to Lucas Valley OSP. And then the east side, it was Kennedy Grove Park to Tilden. And then on the southern, it was the Sierra Azul section, the climb up to Mount Amanam, and then great views from Mount Amanam, the entire Bay Area. And then on the peninsula side, it was Purisima Creek State Park.
Excellent. Yeah, lots of great sections, and I appreciate the different regions there too. Austin, same question for you. Can you tell us how you circumnavigated and your favorite section or sections of the Ridge Trail?
Yeah, happy to, and thanks for everyone joining. I rode along with some friends in a clockwise fashion. We started in Berkeley and took BART into the city, and then rode from San Francisco again in a clockwise fashion north, and made our way around as much of the trail as we could ride in 5 consecutive days. We stopped along or rode along each day and met with different advocates who were very active in those areas to working on trails. And as part of that, we developed a story and an article that was published in a now defunct magazine called Bike. And so Bike sent along a professional photographer who joined us. So it was quite the undertaking because we had backpacks with quite a bit of camera gear, and the stop and go nature of meeting with people and trying to collect content made the days long. And so it was quite an effort. We also tried to use public transportation where possible, since the biking segments, and I think Hannah mentioned earlier in the North Bay, there's some big gaps in the trail, and we couldn't spend a lot of time riding on the roads to get from segment to segment. So we jumped on BART where it was feasible, and in the North Bay, we used some friends that actually shuttled us and then would join us and ride. And so my favorite parts of the trail were so much of it, but really the sections where you're deepest in the woods and feel the most removed from the urban areas were particularly enjoyable. So Bolinas Ridge along the West Marin is fantastic. The upper reaches of Skyline Park in southern Napa are particularly beautiful. And then the segments along the Mid-Peninsula Open Space District, paralleling Highway 35 in the South Bay, are truly amazing with fantastic views over the bay. So, and then where I live in Berkeley, and so being able to ride from my home up into segments of the Ridge Trail right above the house are always enjoyable and visited frequently.
Thanks for sharing that, Austin. Yeah, it sounds like you'll have a lot of information about logistics and public transport to share in the cyclist breakout room. Luana, same question for you.
Yeah, so I primarily ran and hiked the Bay Area Ridge Trail, but I did it in kind of an interesting way. I took the trail tracker and I put it up in a Google Drive, and I invited my friends to come on the journey with me. So how I actually moved from section to section depended which friends I was with. Some wanted a shorter distance or a long distance, but I also tried to take advantage of groups like Ridge Trail and more. They were circumnavigating the Ridge Trail. I joined the Bay Area Ridge Trail's Ridge to Bridge and got 26 miles done in one day, which was fantastic. And then there's races that were running segments of it. Currently, you have Pacific Coast Trail Runs, but at that time I did a segment with Brazen Racing. And then something that was also very interesting is I did an unsupported run. They have a name I can't quite say online, but I think a lot of people who do ultras know what the unsupported runs are called. And each year, one of my friends does a BART to BART run. So I didn't stay with them for the entire 50 miles plus, but I started at Garin and went past Stone Bray and all the way past Stone Chabot staging area and got about a little over 20-mile section. So I started that day on BART, ran up to the trail and ended it on BART. And my favorite section, I think that's almost a running joke at the Ridge Trail, because anytime you asked me, it was always the current section I had hiked. So my favorite section is probably one of the new sections that are that have been completed.
Yes.
Yeah. So as far as the other sections that I can recommend that haven't been mentioned yet, Lower Oat Hill Mine Trail is awesome. That's up in the Napa region and everything. What's interesting about it is just the different volcanic rock formations. I'm a fan of the Bolinas Fairfax, but something that's interesting is the Diaz Ridge, and that has a great view if you hike downhill. So you don't have to hike uphill all the Ridge Trail. You can hike downhill and get a beautiful view of Muir Beach. And just one more favorite is Wonderluck. And I just love Wonderluck County Park. I love the redwoods. And just as far as if you're there running on a misty day. So it's just incredible.
Thanks, Alana. I think I've got some new suggestions for I'll be out this next weekend. And I appreciate you highlighting communities, either going with friends with the Ridge Trail event or even just with a larger meetup, getting to know some new folks. So important when we're thinking about how we might be out on the Ridge Trail. Lyndall, I'd love to hear from you what your favorite section is and a little about how you've been out on the Ridge Trail.
Well, I've ridden in various sections of the Ridge Trail all over the Bay Area, South Bay, North Bay, East Bay, Peninsula, mostly on camping trips where we'd either camp at some place like Bort Meadow or Jack Brook, or there's a couple places up in Napa that we can camp, and down south. So it's mainly, the problem with trying to circumnavigate with your horse is that you have this huge trailer that you need to deal with, and it's hard to move it from place to place if there isn't good parking. So we do loops and ride sections. I think my favorite section is probably well, two of them. Wonderluck is great, and Russian Ridge up on the trail in the peninsula, and then any place in the headlands I think is just gorgeous.
Absolutely. And I've heard you've got a great list of trailer parking around the Bay Area for the Ridge Trail. So we'll be looking forward to getting a little bit more information on that from someone who's been out and tested those parking lots.
Yes, I have to thank Terry Barron for putting that together, but it is a great resource. And there are a lot of places that we can park. It's just there aren't a lot of places we can park and camp at the same time. That's one of our problems for trying to do a circumnavigation, but we can get close to it in sections. So it's not impossible.
Exactly, not impossible. That's the motivational spirit I like. So our second question, let's talk a little bit more about planning. So if you can tell me, Anil, what Ridge Trail resources you used or how you dealt with gaps in shuttling or any other strategic planning that was really successful that you used.
Yeah, so I did the event with the 3 other friends. And this was part of informal event organized by Pacific Coast Trail Runs in 2020. So the main tools I ended up using was all the set of maps for all 70 sections. And then we used AllTrails pretty significantly because all the segments can be searched in AllTrails by single search, Bay Area Ridge Trail. And then once we got the needed section, we could download it in an offline mode and use that on Trails itself. And apart from that, the other thing we ended up doing was download the GPX and then transfer it onto the watches. So nowadays, a lot of watches are pretty sophisticated, and we used to use watches as the primary mode of navigation, and then look into our apps whenever there's some confusion, and then maps probably hardly, but we did carry maps sometimes. So mainly, yeah, these things. And then in terms of dealing with gaps, that definitely was one of the challenges as of now. So our main strategy was we were all comfortable covering in the range of 25 miles. So we were trying to maximize on picking a section which would fit in the 20-25 mile section, and then place cars on both sides since we were 4 of us. And then we would do point to point and pick the car from the other side. And in cases where the endpoints are in urban areas, you just rely on Uber or Lyft to get a ride back as well sometimes. So most of the time that got us, that helped us out.
Excellent. Thank you, Anil. Austin, same question for you. Can you share just a little bit about your planning? I know you talked a little bit about it previously.
Well, I did this in 2010. And so it was way before the Trail Navigator, and just seeing those resources, I was like, wow, I wish I had that back then, because what we used was an earlier version of the sort of classic Wilderness Press book by Gene Russmore. And so I used that book extensively, and then online, basically looking up the websites of all the parks that we were going to go through and checking out maps that they had from various sites. And then just talking to people. I mean, the Ridge Trail staff were critical in helping. In our ride, we were granted access to a few segments that weren't open at the time. And so it was through special request of the Ridge Trail staff that allowed us to make that happen. And in the last 12 years, a bunch of segments have actually been opened that weren't open back then. And so it's great to see how the Ridge Trail has expanded and made some connectivity that presented problems for us. And as I said, we did this in 5 days. And so we were powering through each day. So some of those shuttling and gaps were tricky, and to expedite, we did take BART in the East Bay to bridge a couple segments that were long road rides. And so I didn't really want to focus on riding on road when there was a trail that didn't allow bikes. And so we focused on the segments that were open to bikes. And so that meant doing some car shuttles, some BARTs, the ferry. We took BART under the bay to bridge that gap. So it was a little bit of everything to piece it together in a consolidated or condensed period of time.
Thanks, Austin. And yeah, we're celebrating 400 miles of dedicated Ridge Trail as of December 2021. So always adding more miles. Luana, I'll pass it on to you for talking about
Well, when
planning.
I was circumnavigating, they kept on adding the miles that year. So my journey kept on getting longer and longer, which was great. But I was at kind of an interesting time period. I was able to test out a new technology at that time, and that was outer spatial. So it was really awesome to work with Ryan, the developer, and look at Ridge Trail maps, and then also test out the app. So my main tools, I used a bunch of tools. So I'm a little bit old school and I love a paper map, but I would have the Ridge Trail paper map download, then I would have the park map. So I had those two maps because sometimes they gave a different level of detail. And there was a few parks where I just needed a little bit more detail. And then I really had, I used the app just as far as place, because even with the coordinates, sometimes the coordinates would take me to a parking lot, but it wasn't always where the actual trail started. So just kind of having, being able to reaffirm with outer spatial where I was great. But now the Ridge Trail has brought back the inner map, because at that time I was doing it, outer spatial provided the interactive map. And that was one of my favorite planning tools, because I could click on the different links, see how things were connected, pull up the different layers and really get a visual. And also, for my different friends who were were war hiking different segments and posting pictures, we were actually both kind of Facebook stalking each other and looking at the segments. Because what really helped me when I was going into a new area was just to have that visual. What are different landmarks I'm looking for? So that's why buying the book is valuable, because as far as you can read those different stories and get an idea of what you're going to see. But also for me, I needed to see some of kind of the pictures. So I would get excited to know, okay, at this point, I'm going to see this. There's a lot more tools out there now. So I've been really excited about All Trails because when you get to All Trails and you see the All Trails where it says Bay Area Ridge Trail, and then it has the notation, those are segments that the Bay Area Ridge Trail has provided for All Trails. So these aren't crowd-sourced maps. These are the real thing. So it's been exciting to kind of learn All Trails and that app. And then also there's a lot of friends who use that map. So I still kind of go between both of the apps, but been really excited that we're on All Trails because of All Trails Reach. And finally, I love the Planning Navigator, and I so wish it was around when I was hiking. I kind of made my own Planning Navigator using the original Trail Tracker. And the Trail Tracker has a lot of hidden information in it once you start to hike. So it's really easy to take the Trail Tracker and get an idea of what's connected and not connected before you even go to the interactive map. So there's a lot of great tools, and I'm glad that we're getting more and that we have a lot of talented staff who know this technology and new partnerships. So love the partnership with Outer Spatial, partnership with All Trails, and Jean has just been a rock star all these years with her books. So lots of great tools.
Absolutely. And I'm seeing in the chat lots of good questions and some answers about those resources you mentioned, Luana. So thanks for sparking those discussions. Lyndall, if you can tell us a little bit about your planning when you go head out.
Well, I have to admit, I started doing this so long ago that I really only had paper maps and the book to go on. So it's really great to see that all these tools are now available. And I certainly wish they'd been more available when I was trying to plan long rides on the trail. But yeah, I really relied on the book probably for most of the time that I was out riding, and we'd go to the website and download the maps when that was available. But for a long time, we had to just rely on county maps and finding the trail signs as we went along the trail. So it was a bit of an adventure, but well worth it. I mean, we rode some beautiful sections of trail, and a lot of it was trying to find ways to get to the trail from where we started out, because oftentimes we'd start out at trailheads that were kind of far away from the actual ridge trail. So it was always well worth it when we got there, but I can't say that we were really too organized in our planning, even though we tried.
Excellent. But it sounds like even with the, a little bit more slapdash, you still got out on lots of sections, got to ride a lot of trails, and get out to many of those panoramic views you get up on the Ridge Trail.
Oh yeah, they were really gorgeous. I mean, at any time we were on the Ridge Trail, it was well worth having the trouble to get there.
Absolutely. Well, this takes us to our last question, and we'll do this one just a quick, piece of general advice that you would give to someone who's starting out on their circumnavigation journey. And we'll start again with Anil.
Quick piece. I think making the intention public kind of kept it honest, and we were more committed. And the other thing was inviting friends and family on different sections, kept it interesting with different stories along.
Austin?
Yeah, eating and drinking a lot. I mean, we climbed over 30,000 feet, in 5 days. So we were definitely hydrating and keeping it fun. I mean, not everyone's going to do it in consecutive days. That's sort of wacky. So I think keeping it fun and doing it at a pace that's reasonable, and taking off chunks that are appropriate for whatever your ability is, and And I liked Anil's idea, having friends along and just keeping it really upbeat.
Absolutely. Luana?
So I always look at it like this. What's important to you? Do you enjoy photography? Do you enjoy going out on a Sunday walk with your family? Are you a birder and like to see certain type of birds? So really think about what's important for you first, and then how do you want to experience this trail? You don't have to do it all in 5 days, a year, 2 years, 3 years. I mean, you can have a longer term goal, but make sure that it's something that's doable and that you're going to have a good time and that it's really going to create a memory for you. I think a lot of times we put too much emphasis on that through hike or, that overnight backpacker or that ultra runner. And, those are all things that I do. But I also, some of the most memorable hikes I had were the 3 miles up to Diaz Ridge with one friend who doesn't hike, but she was going to hike for me. So she loved it and she's out there hiking more now. So think of what's important to you. And then 2, find your squad. We all need a bunch of people who are going to cheer us on, who are going to help us during those hard moments, and who are going to give us the encouragement and call us up in the next weekend. Hey, what segment are we doing? Didn't have anything on my calendar, but I guess I'm doing a segment this weekend. So really make it your own adventure and just realize that the Ridge Trail is all around us. And just in a few minutes, you're from city to summit. And so I mean, those are my suggestions. And just as far as what Austin said about good food, I have a favorite urban section in Petaluma where you can get great coffee, beer, and wine and do a little shopping, and it's right off the Ridge Trail. So it's what you make of it. And I love being out in the remote area, but that Petaluma hike with Janet and Eileen is still one of my top Ridge Trail hikes.
Absolutely. Thank you, Luana. Lyndall, any general advice you'd like to share out before we go into breakout rooms?
Well, I think that circumnavigation is probably going to become more possible for equestrians if we think about it in small sections. If you don't try and do a long ride, but you ride a short section and then move on to the next short section. I think that someday somebody will actually get to it, except for the couple of places where we can't ride. But the big thing is that, like Luan says, have fun and we often plan our rides on places that we can go to eat. So that's always a good way to do it. There's several places along the Ridge Trail that you can pull off and tie your horse up and go have a good meal. So think of something that you can do that's going to be a lot of fun.
Definitely. I keep hearing that number one is fun. That keeps coming up. So I appreciate that as a recurring theme. We are going to stop the recording for the moment while we transition to breakout rooms.
But everything is hikeable, and I think everything is runnable, but we have some really steep sections. So you'll definitely have to power hike up some of those hills during the runs.
What does it mean that something's not bikeable? I mean, not bikeable. Is that because it's not allowed to bike or not feasible to bike?
It could be not allowed to bike.
Okay.
If you have a lot of the specific biking questions, we should definitely get you connected with Austin, but some sections bikes are not allowed on. And there's some that are there, besides bikes, there's some sections where they have a separate route for bikes. So some of the sections, even if it is bikeable, there might be a separate hiker route. For the questions, I'm just going to call on the raised hands so that I'll just go in the order that hands were raised in. So the next person is, why am I having so much Is Nicole?
Yep. Hi.
Hi, Nicole.
Hi. Quick question too. For somebody, I've been hiking these trails forever, but this will be my first year to actually just do them all.
Okay.
Do you have a suggestion on how to approach it? Because I was kind of wondering if I want to do it section by section or kind of mix it up. How did you approach it? It sounded like you probably mixed it up, it sounds like.
I was all over the place. It depended who wanted to do what where or what was happening. And sometimes I went clockwise or counterclockwise. The East Bay was easiest for me because I live there. So a lot of that I just ran in long sections. But I think you have to decide just as far as how you would like to do it. I know that's not a perfect answer, but some people are really kind of keen on doing it clockwise or counterclockwise.
Yeah, as if you're literally walking the whole thing in one swoop. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Well, if you were doing it in one swoop like that, then I would kind of look at the different directions, and then just as far as other considerations, if you were camping and access, and I mean, there would be other questions that came in that you would have to look at for planning.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. So that was just next is Pamela. And please forgive me if I mispronounce anyone's name.
Did you backpack any of the trail?
I did not get to backpack any of the trail. I've backpacked the Tahoe Rim Trail, and then I've also backpacked the Trans Catalina, but I wasn't backpacking at that time period. I used to backpack when I was 12 and kind of doing the Ridge Trail really got me into doing longer distances. I don't identify as an ultra runner, but a venture runner because I don't have a belt buckle. So until the day I have a belt buckle, I'm not an ultra runner. That means you've ran 100 miles and you've earned a belt buckle. So for me, I just wasn't backpacking. I think now, since I have a lot more backpacking and I've gotten back into it and bought different gear, there are some sections that would be fun to backpack. Dan?
Hi, I have some comments on the camping information.
Sure.
The camping on the Trail Explorer and on the League's PDF maps don't match up. There are different campsites shown on them. In the Trail Explorer, the campsites don't indicate whether or not there's tent camping. And for most of the agencies, if there's no tent camping, it's $30 a night, whereas tent camping is $5 to $7 a night. So it's an important key thing. There are also no web links back to the agency information on camping.
Okay, well, thank you for bringing that up. Ryan Mack is on the call. And I want to just say, as that's ultra important, because some of the camping sites are yurts or they're group camping sites. And even if you were a solo backpacker, some of the campsites aren't accessible. So really knowing how you can access and what type of camping is super important, and the different links, and making sure that things match up. So all of that information is good. And if anyone ever runs across something that doesn't match up, please reach out to us because we can go in and edit and update resources. So Ryan, he's got that. He's on this call from the Ridge Trail, Deputy Trail Director. So thank you for that comment. Deborah?
Hi, Luana. This is great. I so appreciate your doing this. I guess I have hiked parts of the Ridge Trail, but what I'm interested in is getting my local adventure club to circumnavigate the whole thing. I mean, it would be like whoever can join at the time. Is there anything on the website, or can you recommend the best place to start? I grew up in Napa, but I live in Stanislaus County now. that's an area I'm real familiar with, but I'm trying to think in terms of where to begin and also where to camp.
Okay, so I would reach out to the Ridge Trail staff. Ryan can put their information in the box and everything, because they can help out with logistics. But as far as starting with a group, I always say start someplace you're familiar. You want everyone to have a good experience the first time. And then from there, people have a good experience, they're confident, they build confidence in what you're doing, and then take something a little further and out, because you also want to get a feel for the group and kind of what do they feel comfortable doing, because that might determine the next section of Ridge Trail that you pick, because there are some sections that are way more challenging than others, and you might need to build a group up to that. But we do have some trips that they can point you to, which would be good for backpacking or overnight for a group. And then we also have some guided trips that we do, and we get special permission to camp overnight. In the past, it's been in North Sonoma, which has been awesome. And then also with the East Bay Hills Benefit Hike. And then there's group Ridge Trails and more, where they're circumnavigating the trail. So if you want to do one of their hike one days and talk to a person who's led a lot of groups, those are some different resources, and we can help connect you to that. Can I maybe get one more quick question from Wayne? Or no, I'm sorry, Deborah's the next person.
You just answered
Oh,
my
sorry. So
question.
Wayne, you're next. Maybe I can get in.
It's just a follow up on overnight camping on the trail. It's just, I think there's some chat about this. I guess this is a question to Ryan Mack. On the planner, you have some places where it indicates that there is camping, but it doesn't say what kind of camping. Other places say camping, and then it says tent or group, but then there's some that just say camping, but nothing more. What does that mean? Does that mean you can just camp wherever you want to, or we don't know what kind of camping is allowed, or what does it mean?
Ryan, could you respond to that one?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I don't have the map in front of me right now, but I made a note to definitely check those out.
So welcome everyone, and whoever's in our breakout room here. I'm happy to field some questions in the amount of time we have, which I think is only a few minutes. So, and if necessary, I can put my contact info in the chat box here if anyone wants to follow up after this, because we have limited time. I'm happy to converse with anyone. So, who wants to speak up?
Hey, Austin, it's Michael. Just a quick question. How friendly is the Bay Trail towards bicyclists, given my experience with East Bay Mud?
Yeah, well, the Ridge Trail Council itself is very friendly to cyclists, and it's part of their mission to pursue multi-use along the whole Ridge Trail. The sad reality, though, is the Ridge Trail crosses over many, many jurisdictions. And as you noted, some of them aren't so friendly. So East Bay Mud does not allow bikes on their trails, which is a huge portion of the East Bay alignment. However, as part of my experience and the reason I was on the board at the time, and I wanted to do this ride to better understand those challenges, and realizing that we basically had to ride the road for most of the East Bay, I pushed pretty hard, and we advocated. And East Bay Mud just a couple of years ago did open 2 short segments along the Ridge Trail that allowed connectivity through Wildcat Park down to San Pablo Dam Road. So it's like less than a mile long, but it is a fire road, and it does allow you to ride on it and connect onto the road. And then there's another big segment across Pinole out towards Fernandez Ranch that was open. Now that trail is like 20% slope. It's really hard to ride up, and it's sort of dangerous going down. It's not ideal, but it does provide connectivity. So it depends on where you are, and there are some pretty significant gaps, especially in the East Bay right now because of East Bay Mud and the East Bay Regional Park District. So that's part of the advocacy effort to try to change that.
what can we do to help?
Support the Ridge Trail, get involved with the Ridge Trail, and then I would say work with the Bicycle Trails Council of the East Bay, BTCEB. They're working pretty actively on this issue on both of those land managers. Wherever you may live or whatever the bicycle group is in that area, get involved with them or at least provide them some support because they are working to try to open more trails.
Oh, Austin, I'm in Napa, and so you mentioned Skyline.
Yeah.
How pretty? How can you talk a little more about how you approach that, or what?
Yeah, so Skyline Park is fantastic. It's got a long history for cyclists. There was actually a World Cup race held there in the early 1990s, pretty famous, a lot of activity there. So forget the name of the street. It's in southern Napa, right by the hospital. And what I usually do from the East Bay when I go up there just for the day is we'll park in the Napa College. There's a parking lot on the south side of the college that's by the water. So you can park there for, I think they have like a 4-hour, and then you can ride right across the path, and the Ridge Trail starts right there on the highway going into Napa, and you're riding along the fence of the Napa State Hospital. And that's a back way into Skyline Wilderness Park. And then from there, you use the map. To research it before, because there's definitely some different ways to divide that park up. We like to take the fire road. It's the most gradual climb up to through that park up to the reservoir at the top, and then go clockwise fashion from that reservoir up to the top part of the park. And there's a little lollipop there that goes around the reservoir, and then there's a new segment that off the top of that loop that goes up to a fantastic view that gives you a great view back out over the bay. And then you can ride all the way back down. So look at the map, but I think a clockwise fashion through the park around the reservoir is the best way to do it. And definitely careful. That's not a great place to go in the summer. As you know, it's extremely hot. So I like to ride early in the morning there. And definitely at different times of the year. And then since you're also in Napa, I have to put a plug in for Moore Creek Park up by Lake Tennessee.
Good.
The wildflowers there at the right time of the year are unbelievable. And you can ride that park all the way up to Angwin. It's quite the adventure, but that's an area for the Ridge Trail to do a lot of more work. I mean, that whole section on the east side of Napa is challenging, but it's private property, but there are some little pockets, if you will. Jack London way up north, Mount St. Helena has got a little segment between Calistoga and Oat Hill.
Oat Hill, I think you mentioned Oat Hill as being really beautiful.
Yeah, so just go at the right time of year up there because it's blisteringly hot.
Well, I think you kind of answered my second question with all that description, is that on the map, the Navigator, all the red, I don't know, they use color. So there's red trails going through Napa. I don't know why the red. Did that mean those are trails?
Maybe Hannah can speak to that.
Yeah, so on some of our maps, we'll just have areas that are the planned route. So things that we'd like to open in the future, whether that be next year, in the next 5 years, or by 2050. So I don't have the map in front of me, but I know that we'll show both the current route, and then in a different color, we'll sometimes have that planned route area.
Yeah, there's significant gaps there going over Sonoma, like from Annandale State Park. You can come over the hill, but then it's pretty spotty. From there into Napa, there is no legal route from Sonoma into Napa right currently.
Oh, well, we're concentrating on the Vine Trail.
Yes. Yeah, and that's a great trail. I mean,
I don't know where it connects with. Is there a coordination of connection with the Ridge Trail and the Vine Trail?
I think staff's definitely working with the other regional trail groups and trying to make, but it's tricky. So we only have a little less than 2 minutes left in this session. So let's see if we can get them.
Austin.
I see a question in the box. Would a hardtail do okay on the trail, or would you recommend a mountain bike? Well, I did ride a hardtail mountain bike, but it had front suspension, and I used not insanely wide tires, but like 2.2s width tires. So no, the trail's not, you know, super technical or challenging in a rocky way. It's mostly dirt. I think some of like Oat Hill's pretty rough. That's about as rough as it get. The biggest thing is having a lot of gears. I mean, there are some steep climbs in the East Bay and definitely the South Bay, like riding up Mount Umunum above Los Gatos and Highway 17. It's like 20% grade. So if you need to have some pretty low gears, unless you're just a beast. Any other questions?
I saw Luli had her hand up.
Well, I didn't realize we had just a limited amount of time. I live in Berkeley, and I see you, Austin, with your high school kids, because I hike in Tilden Park.
Yeah.
And you know, riding bikes up there. But I'm new to the challenge of the Ridge Trail. I would love to do it piece by piece. I've hiked a lot in the Berkeley Hills and out near Rifle Range and up off of Wildcat Canyon, which is part of the Ridge Trail.
So we only have 13 seconds. I'll give you a great tip. Take BART to Orinda and then hike from the Orinda BART station up. There's a trail right across the street from the BART stations. Great ride back into Tilden.
Okay, thank you.
All right, bye.
Nice.
Thanks, everyone.
There's some places you can ride along the peninsula that are so wonderful. You know, you're kind of up in amongst the trees, and all of a sudden you'll look out and you'll see the whole Bay Area down below you. It's like, you know.
And I haven't done that one, so that sounds interesting. I actually haven't. I also want to explore the North Bay, and that's more limited, right?
Yeah, the North Bay, the best places along the North Bay are in Napa. There's a couple of campgrounds up there that are really nice and right off the Ridge Trail.
Would that be like Skyline Park? Did you guys?
Yeah, Skyline Park's one of them.
That's a great campground, and it's really beautiful, and it is right outside of Napa. So they talk about a good spot to stop for a wine tasting with the friends. You know?
Yeah, right. That's perfect.
And then of course, there's you know, you can camp at Samuel P. Taylor Park and ride the Bolinas Ridge, which is a fantastic.
And I have not done that. Is that one a tricky one?
No, I mean, it's easy to get up to, and it's just a beautiful, I mean, it almost seems flat.
And it's called Bolinas Ridge.
Bolinas Ridge, yeah. It's on the east side of Highway 1, so across the road from the Point Reyes.
And I guess just wanted to check just in case that anyone else that was in the room that had their video off, if you guys had any questions, or if you wanted to put them in chat or say them, you can feel free to, just in case.
Hop in.
Hop in.
Lyndall, this is Tony Whedon. You had mentioned earlier that you had a list of locations that were easier to get our trailers in and out of for staging, not necessarily for camping, but for staging just for a day ride.
Right.
Is that something you can share with us?
Yes, I'm going to share that with Hannah, who will put it out on the Ridge Trail website, so it'll be available.
That yeah, Lyndall, I would love to get that in the Circumnavigation Resource Center. I think that we don't have, that would be we'd love to have that on our website.
There are quite a few places where you can stage pretty easily. There's some places where it's a little more difficult. Part of the problem is we all have huge trailers now. You know, it was a little easier when we had two trailers without camping facilities.
Right. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, Hannah should get that out probably early next week, I would think.
super. I'll look forward to that. I have a 2-horse bumper pull, so
Lucky you.
I think I'm for my initial treks, I'm gonna do day rides, so I'm not worried about camping.
Yeah, well, the day rides are easier, you don't have to worry so much about carrying all your gear and camping equipment and stuff, but and there's certainly enough easy day rides that are you can find places to park not too far away.
And I guess, Lyndall, did you do the East Bay Hills? And for, I guess, anyone who's listening, that would be there's a 5, usually it's a 5-day kind of over Labor Day section that goes through. Then all of East Bay is all open horses, I think every single mile of it. So there's a 5-day like overnight trip that is supposed to be super fun. Did you do that?
It is super fun. I helped Morris out with that a couple of times and unfortunately wasn't able to ride, but I've ridden that area quite a bit with other times. And unfortunately, one of my riding groups always had a ride on Labor Day, so it was in conflict with that. So
yeah, it's a tough weekend,
but that is just one of the most gorgeous rides along that.
That definitely is. I've done that several times, but it's only been like certain days because half the time I'm working and helping Morris and cooking, setting up camp or something, or doing the parking.
What's the name of that event?
It's the East Bay Hills hike and ride.
Yeah.
Okay.
It used to be called the 5-day ride and hike. It was 100 miles over 5 days.
Okay. Bike and ride. Okay.
Yeah, and it's for hikers and equestrians. I think that maybe
anybody.
They opened it to bikes this last year too, but yeah, it's hopefully this year it can be it's in its true form, which is like a fun camp out, and it includes food and and all the fun things.
Well,
but
hopefully we'll be able to get back to the camping out and meeting together in groups.
But we'll advertise it. It's on Labor Day weekend, but we'll advertise it much before too. So,
great.
I guess.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Tony. And thanks everyone else for joining the breakout room. And Lyndall, thanks for sharing all your expertise.
Thank you, Lyndall. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Well, I guess I may see you guys back in the main arena.
All right.
Looks like the breakout rooms are closing.
We're closing down. It looks like it.